Hey, I'm A.B. Scotts, and welcome to Storytime. Today I'm going to delve into a rather big topic, fear. Um, Fear is something that I feel like I've been afraid my entire life. Partly because being afraid also feels like being alone. A lot of the times I've felt alone in every regard. In huge crowds, I felt alone. I felt afraid. And over the course of the past 18 months, I've come to realize that a lot of, behavioral cycles of the staying, not drinking for a period of time and then having a relapse, is all really based in fear. I didn't understand that, and it's taken me a lot of journaling and soul searching to get to there. But on that topic, I do want to bring in some Buffy the Vampire Slayer because there's an episode that's really fitting. In the fourth season, Buffy is a freshman in college, and the episode is as far as I remember, season 4, episode 4. It's called Fear Itself. If you're familiar with Buffy, it's basically a teenage melodrama with some horror trappings. But inadvertently, and in the planning of a Halloween party, this frat winded up summoning a fear demon, or the fear demon. And over the course of the episode, all the fear, all the characters' fears, like Buffy fears being alone, Willow fears her spell's not working, all the fears become manifest. Eventually, Giles and help arrives, and they wind up facing, getting to the summoning symbol, and wind up summoning the fear demon. When the fear demon arrives, it's about 6 inches tall, but it has all this magnificent power because it's fear. Then, as kind of the postscript on the story, when Giles is looking in the book again, he says, kind of smacks himself in the head and says, hey, it says actual size on the caption. He should have read the caption. But that kind of brings me to my point, is that to mitigate fear, you kind of have to face fear. No, you don't kind of have to. You have to face fear. You don't have to face it all head on. I had to break it down into the different aspects of life I was afraid of. I was afraid of finding another job. At the time, I'd been laid off, and I didn't really want to go back to that job. I had to get out of that, but I was terrified of that. And truth be told, me changing careers, that could have blew up in my face majorly. But the way to get past that is in the daily routine. And that's where it takes me. How do you tackle a big subject like fear? Fear really can be anything. And my biggest answer to fear is in my daily routine. As well, Teddy Roosevelt said, you become fearless by facing your fears. And I face my fears a lot. I started with journaling. I would recommend Tim Ferriss's TED Talk, I think from 2017 or 2007. I'm sorry about that reference. But he goes through what he calls fear setting. He does a wonderful job of doing it, much better than my ham-fisted approach. So He lays his out, the 3 stages of um, divine, prevent, and repair. But it comes down to journaling and seeing the different things and really finding what you want. My biggest fear was actually really living, because one of my I'd really only planned until my mother died, and I hadn't really planned after that because I was afraid of living. It terrified me, and it kept me down. Fear grew to a rule in my life. It was one of the many dark clouds that hung over my life. One of the many gray skies. But the daily routine, and that brings me to Stoicism, which is a ancient philosophy that many great leaders, Marcus Aurelius and Seneca. I'm sorry, I don't know the real biography of Seneca, but I would recommend Seneca's On the Shortness of Life and Letters, and Marcus Aurelius's Meditations. They lead me to a quote that has become a real mantra to me when I meditate. It's, we suffer more in our imaginations than in reality. And when I come across that, my fear seems so much more manageable, because I realized that what I was afraid of was the unknown. And by understanding the different aspects of my problems, they became less fearsome. They became smaller and more manageable. Yes, we suffer more in our imaginations than we do in reality. It seems like such a simple statement, but I've been thinking about that for more than a year. And the more it seems true. And really, one of the most, driving things that took me to face my fears was, where's that at? Yes, the cost of inaction became too high. It was far more painful to stay in my comfort zone and isolate myself than it was to actually work for it. The pain and hurt I caused, like I said before, that still, I still feel that guilt. I still regret that, because it was actions that I took by my own hand. But here we are today. I'm amazed at what I've done, and truth be told, I was scared all the way. But with the purpose in my journal, I really found my way through, and realized that I was also terrified of success. I didn't realize how afraid of success, and just afraid to make the leap into, to really put forth effort and succeeded. I was afraid of getting hurt, and so I didn't really, it's not that I didn't care, but I was fairly cynical about it. That was also one of my defense mechanisms. Cynicism, anger, it all comes back to fear. And as Frank Herbert said, fear is the mind killer. It is the little death that leads to total obliteration. I must face my fear, let it pass through me, and only I will remain. Anyway, thank you for spending this time with me. Remember, always a warm beverage and pinkies up make it seem fancy. I'll see you next time for Storytime. A.B. Scout.